Boom, and we're live, guys. I'm drinking black coffee. No, just kidding. This is the Red Pill Diaries. This has nothing to do with crypto. What I'm going to speak about today is things like universal income, things that seem at first like they'd be a really good idea. And to explain, not maybe to explain why they exist or as concepts, because I can't obviously tell you that someone didn't have let's say non-pernicious reasons to come up with ideas, right? People see problems, they create solutions, but sometimes solutions are the result of problems that were intentionally created, and the wealth disparity is something that was intentionally created. And just to rush through it, because I've described it in many videos in the past, is the wealth disparity does not exist because of capitalism. It doesn't exist because of the free market, because capitalism means free market. I've already explained in the past that no country has true capitalism. There's always protectionism that goes on. And you could argue that it will always happen, although that's not true, because for example, if you had some time in the far off future where everything was blockchain driven, you could probably find ways digitally to remove the risk of things getting corrupted. That's one way. Another way is if mankind even went through a phase for about 100 years of being able to live like I live, which is not in the system, people would not become lazy if they don't need money to live, or if they're getting by fine, if they can grow their own food, if they can have a source of income that's residual, whatever it may be that you're using to unenslave yourself from the system, it doesn't make people become lazy. And in previous videos I've spoken about the statistics in lottery winners. 80% of them go back to work, and that's not the people who just lose everything because they're a bunch of morons. It's the people who just get bored because they need to be doing something. You become rich for the first time, and many people get carried away and they go off the rails, kind of what happened to me years ago when I was 26. And if you have an endless supply, you'll just keep on. There's a chance you can just not grow up. But for most people, you wake up and think, I actually want to give something back to not just humanity, just the world. You start to feel like a leech. And the reality is you are, because if money comes to you easily, the least you can do is pay back the universe somehow. You know what I mean? Life paid you forward, do some in return, or you're just a succubi parasite freak, right? So that just to explain how we got to the stages that we're at of the wealth disparity, that is where people broke the simple fundamentals of being a decent human being. One of those is give back what you get, right? And you'll always prosper more if you do, I've found. Obviously, target your benevolence well. Don't give to some junkie, or unless you just want him to die so he clears the streets, whatever it is. But what I'm saying is, be kind, don't just expect stuff. And that's the one reason the wealth disparity increases, because you have some people who do well, their neighbors help them, everyone around them helps them, and then at the end of it they become a billionaire and they don't help anyone, right? And nothing bad happens to them. They go through their life, they live until they're 90, because the good die young, but the bastards live forever. So that's one way. The other way is corruption, which we have in most countries, pretty much every country really. And because I class corruption as well as, if you have a protectionist market, like people say that Trump is trying to put in at the moment, he's actually not. He's actually trying to, if you really analyze what Trump's doing, he's trying to do reciprocation, something the UK doesn't do. The UK doesn't do it for a good reason. The UK is one of these countries, this is what I'm going to get into just now, when it comes to social engineering, the UK wants chaos. Chaos benefits the elite. If you look at the spiraling growth of population in India and China, and you look how many millionaires and billionaires those countries have, you can understand why it's actually a goal of the super elite to have spiraling out of control populations. And it's not just The main reason, by the way, is because of the money supply. To justify the total money supply having to be increased to service debt continually, you also need to have population growth. And this is why you always hear the word growth, growth, growth. Meanwhile, in a house, if you have someone in your street who's got 12 or 20 kids, they're not doing very well. It's the same as a country. A country will do worse, but these people, some people refer to them as lizards. I don't know by look or by soul, but whatever you want to call them. You know, subhuman or elite, you know, the opposite end of the scale, whatever you want to term them, they're horrible, evil people. And what they're really looking to do is have ultimate control. So the elite in America, for example, they don't care that they're running the country into the ground. The elite in Israel that run America, they don't care if they destroy the whole world as long as they get Israel. So these people, they have their agendas. You need to understand, for all we know, they're trying to terraform Earth into something that actually suits them more, you know, better. And that could be something that looks like Terminator 2 or one of these movies like The Matrix or something, you know, when they step outside and actually see what the world really looks like. That could be their perfect world. You know, they might like that. I've met people that hate trees, literally hate trees. And if it was up, my auntie was like that. She said if it was up to me, I'd cut them all down. And it's like, but you do understand that even though you don't like them, some of them are areas that you'll never see. Why not just have, oh no, I'm not. A brain that wants to make my brain explode because of its irrationality. So when you have these rigged systems and social engineering over, you've got the macro trains and the micro trains. So you've got things that happen in the last few years, like little law changes here and there. Minimum wage. Now, what does minimum wage do? Well, in a free market, you get to the stage where if you've already hired a bunch of people and you're on the edge of what your budget can sustain with your business model, and you get told you need to put everyone's wages up, and you've already hired them, right? Let's say you happen to be at a growth stage while the government says you're screwed. Because now you need to tell your customers, sorry, my prices need to go up. Other companies might not have to do that because they didn't overextend at that particular time. Next thing you know, boom, companies start hitting the wall. That person has no job now instead of the job that's the minimum wage. Meanwhile, as you were going to raise your rates, so will many others out there. The guys that didn't expand, they will be able to reap the profits of the other companies that weren't able to survive, while at the same time bumping up their prices to match the actual living wage. So the whole thing is actually pointless. And a case in point here, I spent 15 years of my life in New Zealand. New Zealand has the minimum wage. New Zealand is a fucking total rip-off of a country to live in. This house I've just bought here in Slovenia, which cost me 18,500 euros, so 36 to $38,000, something like that in New Zealand. That would not buy you anything anywhere in New Zealand. Remembering where New Zealand is geographically, it's not in the center of Europe like this is. I'm right next to Austria, Hungary, Croatia, and it's a good looking place with fantastic people. New Zealand's got major problems with crystal meth. It's got major issues socially because of the divide between the Maoris who ate the original people, the Moriori, but they still call them the natives even though they're not, and the everyone speaks English there. So there's a division society that gets created again by governments playing around. They're trying to create resentment. They give Maoris things like grants, which separates society and creates animosity and resentment. That's not the Maoris that are doing that, that's the white people who control the government doing that, because they couldn't just come along and say, hey everyone, hate Maoris, like they used to do in Australia with Aborigines. That plan didn't work because New Zealanders were too liberal, because a lot of them came from Scotland and stuff, a very liberal, kind of socialist liberal country. That's why New Zealand is socialist and liberal. But now you see the end game of socialism in New Zealand, because there's very few countries in the world where you can see the end game so clear. You get benefits and all these things, but then it's the work for your benefit. Oh, that sounds very good, doesn't it? Work for your benefit. What really happens, what I actually saw in a place called Hawke's Bay, where I spent most of my life, was that all these farmers, who are greedy bastards generally, like when they have rains and they have hailstorms, they've got their hand out for the government purse. When they have a bumper year, they don't give anything back. They just buy a new Mercedes and extend the pool, wherever the fuck it is, right? That's the reality of what happens when you have any form of socialism, is people become lazy. Now, people think that laziness is in the bottom end of the spectrum, right? Oh, the dole bludger who's not doing anything, you're giving him money. being that guy who was a dole bludger because I got ripped off by the system, so I thought, fuck you, I'm going to take money back off you, and I did it for years to my own detriment, right? When I was about 17, 18. So what that does is it takes away that that and me smoking weed, because it kind of dumbed me down a bit, but some people are functional stoners. What it did is it stopped me being so entrepreneurial so young, which I could have been, and I didn't do it till later on. And it held me back. And socialism holds a lot of people back. When you actually have to go out there, it's one thing I do notice about America, even though it's a crony capitalist country, it's not a true capitalist country. It means it's got corporate socialism. They pay the taxes to corporations, and they give nothing back to the people for the taxes that they're paying, right? When I say nothing, practically nothing compared to other countries, right? So America is an example of an alternative socialist reality. It's not truly capitalist, and a lot of Americans would argue about that, but the evidence is all around them. You know, G4S owning prisons, and you know, the private police forces, and the police that work for the private prisons, G4S. It's just you know, it's disgusting. It's kind of a business incestuous environment. So when you have all these things that are created to bring the monetary supply up and up and up and up, so quantitative easing, for example, people look at Cyprus and say, huh, they took 20% off people's bank accounts, they stopped people withdrawing their money, and then they said that, right, we will unlock the banks, but first we're taking 20% out of everyone's account to keep the bank afloat because the economy lost so much money. People are like, huh, that's what you get for living a socialist. No. America has quantitative easing. That is the same thing. It doesn't make any difference. When you add 3 zeros to the money supply, but don't add 3 zeros to the money that I have in the bank, you've just taxed me to the tune of 3 zeros on the end of whatever I fucking had. As far as, well, actually not to the tune of 3 zeros. You basically moved my money down. So if I had $100, what I really have is 10 cents. And that's the lie of the quantitative easing, money supply, inflation thing. So you're always being charged money. So when you have 0% interest rates like right now, what you really have due to inflation is negative interest rates. When you have, like many countries, including Slovenia has recently gone this way, but I'm not in the old system. I'm not in the fucking dollar system. The dying economy is what you need to be terming it now, because that's what it is. It's the dying economy. The last days of a dying economy. Those who don't escape it, it's at their peril, you know. So when you have a negative interest rate like Slovenia has now, and like Denmark, and like many other countries, Japan and many others, what that already was basically stealing your money from you, telling you that if you save, you're going to be punished for saving. So you have to be actively using your money, even though the money supply is increasing all the time and your money is becoming worth less all the time because of quantitative easing, right? So you're losing twofold when you have negative interest, true negative interest rates. You're actually losing twofold. And these things, what they make happen is, well, everything's got so expensive now. No, it hasn't. It's the same as it ever was. To the people who are making a lot of money and have always been making a lot of money, things have not changed. They're making shitloads more money than they were before. Things cost shitloads more than they did before. It's the same movement. The difference is, this is where they obliterate the working class, is that when you're anything below that elite, as the cost comes up and your wages come up at the same time, your wages are coming up this much, and this gap keeps growing, and then you're crushing that middle class, and then you're creating a slave class, because everyone knows that when you don't have money, you have to pay more for everything. That's just a reality of life. Tom Cruise gets given stuff for free. Whoever the fuck other movie star out there gets given whatever it is for free, even though they can afford it more than you and I. It's because they're marketing our product, whatever it may be. It's not just in the case of people who are famous. It's in the case of you're spending a lot of money with us, or therefore. This is why old people don't get charged as much money in the United Kingdom. You know why? Because young people get charged up to £7,000 a year in some parts of Scotland, and that's to prop up the old people who are actually the highest risk. They put the burden on young people and then spread the propaganda that guys between the age of 25 and 17 and 25 cause a lot of accidents. Well, all you have to do to change that is put low insurance rates with massive what's it called? Not premium. The thing that you pay when you when you have an accident, I think it's premium, I can't remember. No, the premiums are the, but you know what I mean. The it's not coming to me right now. I can't be bothered. It's the morning, thinking of the word. But just make a massive payment required if you have to make a claim. That's it. Simple as that. That's if you really give a shit about them, but you don't. It's about taking money and making sure all that money is 100% profit. Because one, you're never going to pay out any of those kids that have a crash. Two, you're just raping from them every single year. 7,000 to insure a car that's worth $1,000 because they might hit a Lamborghini. It's just bullshit. So the whole thing's a scam. All right, insurance we know is a scam. The financial industry itself is a scam. Insurance is part of that scam, and then you've got the ancillary ones like the pharmaceutical industry. Although only in America that's a thing. It's not really a thing the rest of the world because we do actually have free markets in other countries. We're not completely corporate socialist like America is. Therefore, we don't have to pay. We don't have to bankrupt ourselves when we get sick. It's just a normal thing. Same as you don't have to bankrupt yourself for me to put in your IT systems in your company. You know what I mean? Or someone to fix your fucking laptop or get your photograph, whatever it might be. You know, this is why there should be a limitation thing. Just a normal human being thing. I'm being rewarded for doing a job. I'll give back by not being an asshole and saying I'm the only one of 5 people in my neighborhood who does this. I think when little Joey gets sick across the road, I'll make his parents remortgage their house. You're just an asshole. So that's the bad side of capitalism. If you didn't have any of the if there's no controls in place, which is fine, no, you know, just full open market, non-controls. What you can what you would end up having is the occasional asshole doing stuff like that. But you know what happens? Any proper free system, when you have anarcho-capitalism, everything regulates itself. In other words, if you're a piece of shit, your neighbors are going to kick the shit out of you. And this is why humanity is losing. Because what the system does is it separates us all. Separates women and men. Spreading all this feminism bullshit. Years ago it was spreading misogyny. It's the same thing. It's spreading it's swapped misogyny for misandry. It's the same thing. You man-hating, you know, trying to make women do jobs, forcing women, you know, basically indoctrinating them into making them think they want to do jobs that they actually have no natural compulsion to want to do, which is why they had the choice of doing them before but didn't do them, and they have the choice of doing them today and still don't fucking want to do them, right? You get maybe 1 in 100, but you always did have that. I've been working with female computer engineers for years. There's a few more now, but the only thing that's changed is the amount of shit ones there is. Mind you, that's the same with the guys. There's more computer engineers than there ever were, but that's because when money comes into the space, same as recruitment, you just attract people who are completely useless, regardless of sex or race or anything, right? It just ends up being a market that attracts the flies, you know? So, universal income, I know it's 18 minutes into the video and I'm only just got into this now. The reason why universal income bad is because one is you cannot trust a government with anything. All right, these are why the fuck ups happen in the first place, because these fucking assholes created the situation which made this wealth disparity, which made you have to feel that you had to increase the minimum wage in the first place because of the shit that these assholes put in place to allow the wealth disparity to creep up in the first place. Not just the economic paradigm that we have that is completely flawed, that they follow, but the system that they rig in favor of the elite to allow the wealth disparity to grow and grow and grow, and to make people have to struggle more because their share against, here's the elite, here's the poor, their share goes down. Here's a few 150 billion people, right? And here's 20 people. That's how it really works nowadays, right? And they're going up and up and up, and these guys are going down, down, down. So those same assholes who have been completely their wages go up and up and up beyond inflation. Your wages hardly ever keep up with inflation, but the government, they make sure they give themselves a raise, even though they're doing a worse job, even though there's no performance indicator, no KPIs going on there to say, key performance indicator to say, have you done your job well? Non-accountability is the order of the day when it comes to government, and this is why I cannot fucking stand government. There's just no need for it. We're at a stage where we have the technological ability not to have government at all. We can just do collectivisms with people. I'm not talking about communism. I'm talking about modern harnessing of technology with modern ways of thinking. Democracy in your neighborhood. The best guys get together and make things happen, like in farming communities like I'm in right now. They work much better. Everyone's still got nice cars and shit. Everyone's still got their stuff. Everyone's still got, there's, capitalism. The funny thing about socialism is that it helps these assholes gain a lot of capital. So the socialism gets corrupted and turns into a capital gain venture, right? A capital gain paradigm. And the capitalism gets corrupted by effectively corporate socialism. So the two of them, the actual destruction of both capitalism and socialism, intersect. They just don't work. And I can understand there was a place for them. They've allowed us to get to this point. People argue that they've actually allowed us to get to the point where, look at some of the technology we have, it comes from capitalism. No, it actually doesn't. If you look at most of the technology we had in the past, before we even had capitalism, or even after, like with Tesla, for example, Nikola Tesla, a lot of these great ideas, Leonardo da Vinci, a lot of these ideas came from people who were just intelligent people. They had time to spend on stuff. We've got a much bigger population than they had back then. Imagine how many people would invent amazing things to give to humanity to move all of us forward, like fire did for us all when we shared it. Imagine how much we have going out there if people weren't sitting there grinding away just to pay their stupid bill, come back and flop on the couch and go, look, I just don't want to think about anything. Because the struggle for this bullshit life I'm trying to eke out is destroying me. Whereas instead, a universal income, I used to be for it. The reason why is because I know that from spending years not working and just having fun and also helping people do stuff and also doing projects, because I'm living proof. You get bored, you just want to do stuff. You want to, right, I've got a brain. How am I going to help? How am I going to make the world better in my own little way? How am I going to make my street look better? Whatever it might be, right? And you end up finding the things you're good at. And when you find the things you're good at, your efficiency rate increases 10, 100-fold. This is why you get so much done. People think, how do you fit so much in your life? Because you're living a shit life. You're living a life that you're doing stuff that you don't enjoy. Therefore, it's a struggle, and you're probably not good at it either. And then it also drains you. So you're becoming a very inefficient. This is why slavery was so inefficient. You had people who might have been a good doctor, and he's working shoveling shit. And you had someone that might have been a good architect, and he's working shoveling shit. You know what I mean? That's why the different forms of enslavement, we have enslavement now, when you're a tax slave, a system slave. This is the third iteration, I think it is, of slavery. And this iteration of slavery that we're living in right now, which I was talking about in my video a while ago, the one that got split in three because I think my phone got hacked, was phones, my accounts somehow, and it got into all my phones, was about the Kanye West stuff, you know, when he said that slavery is a choice, as it actually is, although the choice may be death. So the universal income thing, the reason why it stinks is because just like what happened in New Zealand, and I think a couple other countries did it, where they made you work for your dole, work for your benefit, what ended up happening is those asshole farmers in the Hawke's Bay, who are already greedy, because I used to do the computer systems anyway, I know they're fucking selfish, greedy assholes, most of these guys. They used that to say, right, instead of hiring this guy for, I don't know, $14, $15, $16 an hour for picking plums, he's a really good plum picker, I can get these people here who I can go down to the dole office and say, right, everyone, you're sitting here ready to get your dole. Well, you got to be a job seeker, so we're gonna bring this guy in here, and he's from a local orchard. Right, yeah, you guys need some tough guys. I can do this, do that. Yep. You don't want to work? No. Then the dole office person puts it down. They don't want to work. That's it. They get their benefit cut. But the guys that don't get the benefit cut, boom, they end up making like $12 an hour, and this place that used to pay 18, 16, whatever the fuck it is, but now pays 12, right? And half of that gets paid by the government. So this piece of shit is actually getting someone for $6 an hour. What happens? The people who would have actually been employed by this greedy asshole end up on the unemployment line, and instead of making 18, they join that queue that make just 12 bucks an hour, half of which is paid by all of our taxes. So that guy becomes a tax bludgeoning piece of shit. That is not capitalism. That is corporate socialism. The same as Amazon have. The fact that there's and what are they called? Walmart, with their staff on benefits because they can't actually live on the wage they get given. That is what you call corporate socialism. You, the people, are propping up them, giving them their whopping massive profits they already have, and doubling, tripling their profits while everyone gets poorer and poorer and poorer. Now do you understand why capitalism is not necessarily a good thing if it's not done right? Now, free market capitalism Let's take in Atlanta, where I couldn't get decent internet that I spoke about in previous videos. I compared them. My 30 meg Comcast service to the AT&T service, only 6 meg. Both of them played RT.com just as shit because they were both disobeying the net neutrality laws, which later got repealed. And yeah, sorry, I thought my video was finished there. So if you came along like Google did and they couldn't get in the neighborhood, most of the country had the same problem. Tennessee, they had the town of Chattanooga that ended up saying, you know what, fuck you Comcast, fuck you AT&T, and they let other companies come in. Instead of having dial-up, because someone had a monopoly of dial-up service, and I'm not kidding you, they ended up getting the fastest internet in the country. And this here, I've got 500 meg to my door fiber in Slovenia. 2 million people. Why is that possible in a country that's only got an average income of 10,000 euros? Why is my neighbours driving AMGs? Because it doesn't matter how much you earn. It's about the relative balanced cost in your area. It's about the greed of your government, right? Or it's about how thrifty they are. If they're efficient and only have enough people as they need, then I don't mind the governments. The problem is, from what I've seen traveling all over this world, and every continent, all over the planet, I've been at least 140 to 150 countries now, all I see is government is a self-perpetuating parasite. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, starts to eat everything up. The same as crony capitalism is. It eats everything up. So these crony capitalists hide under the guise of free market capitalism, and they're not free market capitalists. And these asshole governments who are big gov, they hide under the thing of, so people like Bernie Sanders, for example, I used to support him. You can look back at my Twitter. I was a big supporter of Bernie. I put $3.5 grand into his campaign until I discovered that it was being siphoned off by Hillary Clinton's crew. And then also later on discovered that he was an insider who was too weak to stand up against the big government. Unlike Trump, who's got a powerful family who can stand up against him, because they're not going to do a hit on him. They're not going to kill his family, but they'll do it to Bernie Sanders. So then you realize that, okay, out of weakness, whatever, you're too weak to be president. Fuck off. Tulsi Gabbard isn't. You know, Andrew Wang. There was something I read about that guy where I was into his policies, and then I thought, oh, actually they seem to be copied off of Bernie and copied off of Tulsi. And then I read something else where, and I cannot remember what it is. It was a downside thing, but it was a major downside. It wasn't about climate or any of that sort of crap that people expected to be. Something fundamentally retarded. Anyway, I'm not going to get into it. Even Tulsi could be an insider. All I say is let her be the one that wins, so that we can see the system's a complete fucking fraud if she ends up being, right? To know that no matter who you vote, you will still get the same thing. Trump showed a little bit away from that. I think we'd be in a world war right now if we had Pence in charge. This is why I think that the DNC would prefer to have Trump in again, because their bosses will still be happy. It's the same. The DNC and the Republicans are the same party, right? So all over this world, when these situations happen for universal income, what it's really doing is saying, I'm the government, here you go, young peasant. So besides the fact of putting cash, getting rid of cash so that they can track all your money, right? So you can't ever spend anything. Like, he's been taking drugs. Look, we've looked into the dark web. We've traced his money through here, through Libra coin. You know, that's what the future brings. If you are dumb enough to think that universal income's a good thing. The only reason that you need universal income in the first place is the effects of the mismanagement of both the corrupted capitalists and the corrupted socialist systems. Both of those together are the same fucking animal. They're no different. Anarcho-capitalism is where what's yours is yours. You have a bit of liberty thrown in there, libertarianism, because you should be able to protect yourself. I don't want to have police do everything. I don't need to have police do everything for me. It would be okay to have community police that we choose to put our money into in a autonomous way. So this little town might choose to have it. We might choose to buy a local I don't know, let's say small form factor nuclear weapon. Whatever we decide to do, it'd be our choice. You know why? Because we live here. If anything goes tits up, it's us who suffer from it, and that's where anarcho-capitalism beats hands down everything else. And you think, well, what happens with these big companies that trod over everyone? Well, they can trod over everyone because the system protects them. Do you really think that they want to go through their whole rest of their life not traveling, not going anywhere, for thought that someone might have a sniper rifle ready to blow their fucking brains out and would be justified in an archaic world. That's why the law is in place, to make them safe, because law protects evil. It's the whole reason it's there. It protects evil, always has done, and it always has robbed people too. It robs people on behalf of the system, the queen, the king, the emperor, whatever it might be. So if you get the universal income and the elite get richer and richer because they don't remove capitalism yet, it means that the machines they have, it could just be a stepping stone to appease you. So after collapse happens, after the financial collapse happens and you've got nothing, it's like, the government should do something. No, you should storm the government and take all the wealth back from the governments and from the crony capitalists, because they are the same thing. They feed each other, right? You take it back because they stole it off you. You were too stupid. You were too busy working away while they were stealing out your back pocket. That's what actually happened. If you're someone out there who has, you can't afford one Bitcoin out there and you're my age, you're a fucking loser. I'm sorry, but you need to sort your shit out. You need to see what happened in your life to make it so that you can't even afford one Bitcoin, right? There's only 10 grand. Sort your shit out. And part of that is waking the fuck up. Governments cannot be trusted, neither can big corporations. They only used to be able to live for about 50 to 100 years, a corporation, for a good reason. If you have the rights of personhood, well, that means that you're competing against a person who can live to be 1,000 years old. Now, you've all seen maybe years ago the movie Highlander. I'm from the Highlands. You live forever, you can accumulate wealth, and then you get in a position where no one can ever touch you. That's why companies should never have the right of personhood. This is all bullshit. Again, laws and regulations which paved this way in. So if you are sold on the lie of universal income, as I was for a short period of time, before I really thought about it, just remember what it really means is the same as cashless society. It means you're going to be trapped into a situation where the government has complete control, the government / corporations, because it's the same fucking thing. It's the elite mechanisms. That's all they are. Big corporations and government are the elite mechanisms which keep them at the top of the pyramid. Oh, Rihanna and everyone. Fucking disgusting watching them on stage doing that shit. But that's the reality. They stay there because you allow them, because you're, let's say, consciously moronic. You need to wake up. You owe it to yourself. If you have the intelligence above, even above 90, you can actually grasp this stuff if you're that level. But you know, the 110 club, as I say, that most police officers, that you're definitely smart enough. If you're not spending your life just going, yeah, I got a new car, I'm gonna buy a new house, and I'm gonna get this, and then you can get a haircut, and you know what I mean? Wake the fuck up. Learn what's important. Be a nice person. When we can transform this world into a place that has ever expanding knowledge, which is shared between all of us. None of this bullshit like national security. You shouldn't have to have national security. We should be looking at weapons that can defend against anything, so that no one actually needs a weapon. All you need is a shield. You know what I mean? Because if you think about it, if you had a weapon that could defend against a nuclear weapon, I mean a defense mechanism that could defend against a nuclear weapon, and against a knife and a gun and all that sort of stuff, and it was just tiny, like Mr. what's his name again, Dr. Manhattan, right? Could defend against anything. You don't need a weapon unless you're a cunt. You know, really think about it. The only time you would need a weapon, if you had the ability to defend from any onslaught, is if you were a cunt. I'm going to leave it there because I think that's enough. And repetition of the C word, who cares? They'll never let my channel get seen by anyone anyway. So if you're on my 2 viewers who are left out of the, what was it, 1,800 that they've taken away in the last year, then bravo. Not like the 20,000 that Twitter took away. That's fine. You know what? I've got to say one thing before I sign off here. I think that minds.com has been infiltrated. I've got very little growth. So my Minds account, within the space of, I think it was 3-4 months of having it, grew to the size of my Twitter account. And now it's completely fucking stopped. And I can only get, I've already seen rumors about stuff that they've become deep state along with everything else, So I think it might be compromised now. I'm not going to be plugging them anymore. BitTube, they've moved to a new platform. They're taking a, man, instead of keeping the site how it was, this is bad project management, right? To move to bittubers.com, not only is it a bit of a shit name, but we'll get used to it, but not have ready the ability to actually upload the videos. What's the content on there right now then? Where's that from if you can't bring your videos across from bit.tube? So guys, what a shit job you've done for project management there. You should have had it ready first and then move from the old platform, not leave it hanging for like, I think it's been 2 months now. I can't even bring my videos across, and therefore I can't upload. I can't upload my videos or suck them across, what's it called, ingest them from YouTube, because I don't like only having YouTube as a platform. I don't like congratulating them. What I'd rather do, if a company like yours did well and collaborated with BitTube and BitChute and Viewly and DTube, if you all guys collaborated and actually properly became something that could take on YouTube, I'd love to just ditch YouTube. It doesn't deserve our business, the same as Twitter doesn't deserve our content, the same as Facebook doesn't deserve our content, right? So yeah, I just wanted to get that one out there. We might get to the stage in the future where social media could die out, who knows, and people actually just get back to communicating directly or in group chats and stuff. So let's say things like Slack, and I wouldn't say Microsoft Teams, it's completely ripped off of Slack, but let's say Discord and Slack could be probably used in different ways with apps joined, you know, with app connectors joined into them to actually give the same kind of thing we get on Facebook without the centralized nature of it and therefore corrupted nature of it. People might start even to move away from trend feeds, given the fact that trend feeds are manipulated, therefore the trend is what they want the trend to be. It's like if I say the inside of my cup of tea and I just show it, it's like a fucking black hole and you can't see shit, but I make that trend. Look, it's it's trending now. It's trending. It's fucking bullshit. These algos are completely manipulated. Or they may have the algos, but they also have the ability to see, right, for this guy, bypass the algos so that he just gets hidden from everyone. And that's obviously happening to a lot of people on YouTube, although they're being open about it now. I don't know if you've seen a video with Lee Camp and Jimmy Dore. They're actually letting them know that they're basically taking away these streams. They're giving them to take away the initial reaction. They're phasing it in slowly. Oh, by the way, in time, we're just removing civil liberties that you have to share information, and yeah, it'll be nice. It'll be good for everyone. It's just a bit of freedom of choice, and this, you know how banks tell you, like, oh, we've got this account here that can fuck you over, and this one here that just absolutely rapes you. But it's just a choice. I mean, you've got choice. Instead of just giving you one that's actually making money out of you and while allowing you to bank. You know what I mean? They pretend you've got a choice. Anyway, I'm rambling on now. It's been 38 minutes, which is one of the longer ones in my videos. I'll see you later. I hope that clears up the whole thing between universal income and the other social engineering tools that you're led to believe that you need because of the outcome of the broken system, which will assist the broken system in continually fucking your life and your kids' lives. All right, please wake up to it. You don't need governments. Life's not that difficult. When you break away from the system, life is a lot easier than you think. Life was already easier for people in the dark ages than it is now, because you grow food, you have your place, you're not paying taxes if you're away from an area that isn't governed by anyone. But nowadays people are working harder and they're getting less, and at the end of their lives they have still a mortgage. You wouldn't have that years ago. You'd pass on something to your kids at least, you know what I mean? But now we have all this technology, and yet our lives are more difficult with all this help. And that must mean, this is why what's happening at the top is all that extra efficiency that we're having is not being, the benefits of it is not being realized by us. It's being taken to the top. That's what's actually happening. You are a unit, you're a piece of cattle, that's what you are, and your labor is used just in the same way let's say a cow might help plow a field to plant the corn, give milk all the time and blah 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 blah, and then a little bit of that labor for that corn goes back into feeding them to give them just enough to be a piece of cattle performing for them. That's what the human race is right now. And it will not change until people revolt against it. All right, take care. It's 40 minutes coming up now.